So this is a team FFA replay. What we're gonna see, Fan and I think Fan started over here, and I started down here. So we had like a bit of a struggle to like establish territory. It was initially a fight to just survive, which was possible because these aren't especially difficult teams here. The other thing to note is this was played on anonymous mode, so none of us knew when we encountered other people who other people were. Okay, so just looking at the start, we have Genjuro down here and Star here, BlueFrostz, CaptainComShot, and woodlogaming is all the way up there, so that's another very separate team. StarDoM and Genjuro are on a team here. We've got Blue starting up here. Okay, because we eventually thought that Blue team was across here, because it seemed like those three were kind of teamed up. So that'll be interesting to see. Spookums, Karma, and Will are starting separate. We've got obviously Fan and Master Bell. We've got iGame for Fun, Grenwacht, and NoKetchup. So they're all starting apart. It's really just these two which started together. So yeah. But we're going to look at this at the start. So looking at this, okay, that's EvolvedMonkey here. So it's maybe a miracle that I wasn't pushed out by Star and Genjuro early on. And I did think about potentially pushing in here and raiding early on, but that seems like a war I shouldn't have tried to fight. I am curious, because someone up here built an air lab. iGame for Fun built an air lab pretty early on. So I'm curious where they went to. It's interesting the planning that's going on with EvolvedMonkey. They've really bitten off a lot with this, but I mean, this is cool. They can control that area of the map with all three of them. These two against iGame would be good, and they'd be able to hold that. I might have been a little less ambitious and say, I'd probably suggest lining up to something like that is more achievable for them. Evolve probably would be able to hold this over here. So something like that. Because TNT and CaptainBlue aren't probably going to be able to hold that much territory on their own. But we'll see. We've got Genjuro over here, Master, Star. So it's a pretty solid start from all of them. And there's nothing super interesting happening at this point in time. Welcome to the stream. Okay, so here, we see hovercraft from Star, and this convinced me actually that Star was a noob, because I saw the hovercraft pretty early on, and I was like, no, really? As far as I can reckon, that was a very weak start from him. Especially considering that there are paths for K-bots to go through the water, and so that was a good opportunity for us. Okay, so initial starting here, I've got two constructors out and struggling for energy. That's okay. So it looks like we're on kind of an even footing with other players. Yeah, maybe slightly behind on energy because of investment into wind generators rather than solars. Not any energy access so far, so it's probably fine. And I have the energy lead, alright. So that's a pretty solid start. Only maybe rather than going pawns right off the bat, I do have a radar, and no one else really has any units out yet. It may have been better to go for like 4 constructors first, as a first step. We'll slow it down now because a lot of stuff is happening. We've also got Fan up here on our team, who's pushed his commander out of base really quickly. I don't know if I'd do that. I'd rather use the extra build power to push out a couple grunts and use them to scout, and potentially send out constructors because you lose a lot less build power doing that. But I guess you might want like the commander. Okay, there we go. There's the comm flying over. Alright. Okay, so Star's gone quickly for water and is just guarding the factory with the commander. I've gone out expanding with the commander. I probably would have also got more mileage if I'd have left the commander at base and expanded with the constructors, seeing how many resources I have. I mean, commander does walk slightly faster than constructors, but I could have afforded to send out and expand in 2 directions. Also, this is a very vulnerable constructor and it is on radar. So it may have been worth just sending something over. I sent these down here to scout. Okay, there are a couple of things I want to talk about here. But firstly, I sent these down to scout. A couple things on that. There's no res bot with them to reclaim, so that's something I probably should have done. I'm bringing it out now, but I probably should have done these 5 res bots, those 5, and then a res bot straight away and sent it with them, and then I could have followed up with more pawns. I'm also queuing a bunch of wind, even though wind's just gone max and I'm fine. Another thing to do would have potentially been to walk my commander this way and secure this as a really important choke point. However, as it turns out, not having the choke point was a good thing later on. So, make of that what you will. But I think it maybe would have been important to note that there's a person here and a person here, so I don't want this choke point, because I don't want to be the person potentially fighting over it. That's potentially a thing to make. That said, it's like 4 metal extractors, so maybe it's worth the metal. Anyway, so I come down here and raid this base, because it's absolutely got no defense. I'm kind of just scouting, but I'm like, I see that I can just take on the base. Problem is, I do not have a res spot here to come in and reclaim all of this. Let's just see how much metal there is. I'm also not observing. Where's my attention? Okay, I am paying attention now. I kind of thought that maybe I could take on the commander. I think if I'd have gone for the laser tower, I could have taken out the commander there. That said, I couldn't have reclaimed it, and so who was I to know that I could, like, get away with it? And he's got a comrec over here already. Yeah, I'm really suffering on build power. I've also got a constructor in my factory, so I think it was the wrong move for me to move my commander out of base so early. Probably should have pushed with constructors instead, because most of the time on expansion here is spent on walking, so it's probably better to leave the commander in the base and expand with constructors instead. And doing this is kind of stupid without at least a laser tower. I've seen that EvolvedMonkey has stuff over here. So, yeah, okay, so that was TNT. It's also might be interesting to note the communication, because he's just going, who is this? So he really doesn't know what's going on there. And then I just bring them back. If I'd have paid attention, I could have got the factory, and that would have been big. But then I'm trying to keep this alive. So, yeah, that coulda, shoulda been dead. And there's a lot of reclaim there that I could have had if I just brought a res bot with me. So I'm ignoring whatever's happening down here because they're fighting. And that's an interesting decision there. I just... Because there's a lot I could have done. I could have weakened this player, weakened that player, but they're... Knowing that one of the commanders has exploded already... If we look at this, I potentially can see that this is Green's commander that's dead. Except I can't. I can't see who's, because this is anonymous. So I don't know who's died here. All I know is this is red. So... And considering that I've got pressure on me here, I can't really afford to go all in on this. Because it could have been worth going all in on the wreck. But I didn't. And it wasn't. Okay. And then I see this as a lone laser tower with 2 mexes, and so that's easy enough to kill. But so is this, and so is this extremely vulnerable base to raid. And I can see on radar that there's like only this here. So maybe what I should have done is prepared to come in and attack here as an easy target as soon as they stop fighting is maybe the opportune thing for me to do. Because he's definitely putting up a fight and making it difficult for Genjuro. Although he's dying from the other direction too. Because Genjuro is ultimately the person who, the player who kills me this game. And so that's why I'm thinking it's like, okay, what can I do to kill Genjuro? Okay, here we have CaptainBlue come down. So it was Spookums and CaptainBlue up here. Because late game I was fighting 1, 2, and then Fan was fighting number 3. I thought all 3 of them were potentially allied together. Because there wasn't that much defensive between these two as far as I could tell. But it looks like this was a distinct team. So, that's useful to know. Fighting going on here. I probably won't worry about the micro. We can think about that another time. But for now, we'll just ignore that aspect of things. Again, I need more build power. Like, if this could have been... Like, ignore putting extra resources into army. I've sort of got enough army to survive at least. So if I had, say, 110, if I had another 4 constructors could have got out here and got these resources a lot sooner. Maybe, like, secured all this area and that reclaim a lot earlier. That may have been a worth it move. So if I can get the build power out and then eke out only just enough defense and units and then get over to the expansion and see what I can do. Because this is an easy target too, but then of course there's the entire thing of, can I come in here and kill Genjuro? Because I know they've been fighting, so I know he's vulnerable, and I know I haven't been fighting as much as him, so I've got the advantage in that sort of an engagement. I'm also energy stalling really bad, which is bad because my laser towers aren't firing and they could have survived. I could have killed Captain Extra Constructor. So, actually, if my constructors are on passive, can my laser towers fire? Okay, I'm gonna note that down. That's something I need to try. Because if I can allow my laser towers to fire by putting my constructors on passive at this point in the game, then I definitely want to do that. Of course, the other thing is I just probably needed an energy storage. Because at this point I have accessed a huge amount of energy. And so if I had like a few thousand energy available right now, that would really supplement my income. So let's say if I had 1 or 2 energy stores, would be a decent amount. Probably should work out what's the optimal number of some math that someone can do is what's the number of energy stores per wind speed range. So if we've got and like economy, so if we've got this and say 6.7% of the time the or like it's like what percentage of the time is the wind below average? How much below average will it be? And what do I do with that time? Because it's like if I build wind for the average, so that I've only got just enough wind when it's average, then when I have excess, that goes into storage and that flows back in. So how much storage I need would probably be a function of the difference between the average and something. And so that would be a useful widget that someone could write. It's like, do you have enough storage? And it just tells you yes or no or whatever, like what's the optimal amount of storage to have for a wind-based economy. Also judging how much like solar collector economy you have. Because my economy's so bad at this point, and that's another thing. A laser tower is firing. It's like, because my metal extractors are all turning off at this point in time. So, well, not all of them, but some of them are turning off. Like 4 of them at least are off. And that's a significant amount, and all my laser towers can't fire. So yeah, my metal extractors are off, and I want to know if like passive builders or something affects that. Yeah, because then it's like managing passive active needs to be a more important thing. And potentially need to write a helper widget, for example, to help manage, like to more automatically manage what's on passive and what's not, just to make sure I'm managing that, because I can't be like constantly microing which constructors are on and off, partly because I don't even know. Actually, that would be a very useful thing. It's like draw a green ring or a red ring around passive and non-passive constructors. That would be a first step. But yeah, okay. So, putting out more energy, and at this point I could really afford to expand over here. It's really open, and if I could have enough energy, then it would be fine. I probably should have resurrected this constructor wreckage as a first priority in order to get this ability to build, because what happens next is he brings a beamer over. Because I've been so slow to build stuff, he beats me to having his beamer and stuff. Partly I'm also energy stalling really badly, which is something I should have also been paying attention to. I'm trying to remedy it, but I'm not having a lot of success so far. Okay, they're still focusing on fighting each other down here, and here's the point at which I was commenting on the I was commenting over the, the choke point, and how having evolved in the choke point was possibly, advantageous for me. Because the question is, how much has Evolved invested into this choke point at this point in time? Let's ignore the metal. No, we'll count the metal extractors. We won't count the mobile units. That's 875. So if he held this for 2 minutes, it would be worth it. So I think it's arguable that EvolvedMonkey has got his metal worth from holding that choke point, so maybe it would be worth fighting over it. I mean, depending how much I have to invest to fight over it, because I don't want to, like, sink my whole economy just to fight over it. Something I do now is I build mace, and I never use this mace. What I should note is that he's been building a bunch of pork now, so what I should do, I think what's worth doing is just pork myself, invest in mace, and skip trying to push that front. It's not worth it anymore. It's just not worth it. I wonder if I make that decision. The other thing is, like, I should be, rather than trying to push out constructors and stuff, I should be, trying to up my energy, right now. Okay, there's nothing really else for me to comment on other than this is still a hyper vulnerable path for me to go through. This is still at war, and with it's also potentially would have been advantageous for me to go sea sooner to get these metal extractors. But really what I needed was, don't build the mace. I've stopped building the mace now, which is good. Because I think partly because I hear the pounders down here. But stop building the mace, or even reclaim it, because I can't use it. And ASAP, as soon as this is, like, they're fighting over this, like, and I know there are pounders there, get my pawns out of there, and set them on any other front. Yeah. Probably would have been worth putting out some rovers to scout this area. And then the other thing I do, yeah, it's like, as soon as I've got spare metal, I'm not building an army anymore. I'm not, like, trying to stay alive. I go back and try to get C. It's probably worth noting, though, at this point in time, this is open, so it would be a wonderful opportunity for me to do that. Also, can I see that this is open? Let's just see. Is there anywhere to... Where's the best place for a radar here? Because a radar there, can't see half of that. But if I put the radar up here, I can see more of it? Still not that much. Okay, let's look at elevation. So if we go right on the tip there, it's probably our best place. Because there's nowhere else that's flat enough with any sort of elevation. Like, even over there, that's far too low. Alright. We are... Yeah, we're getting the reclaim in here, which is awesome. We're accessing resources, but we're not scaling up our build power. So, we're building some here, but over here, probably as soon as this scenario hits, grab one of these constructors, or two, throw down some nano turrets, and start building out a larger wind farm. Because not doing that is a bit of a resource bottleneck. I mean, it's a waste to not use those resources. Yeah, I don't do anything with those mace. Like, a single pawn could have taken out that metal extractor, so it definitely wasn't worth it. And, like, yeah, a scout vehicle would have allowed me to move over here a lot sooner before waiting for an army, because there's nothing to avoid in terms of army over here. I possibly even didn't need to push out so much army, although this is on radar up here, so I can see that he's building an army over here. So yeah, there is basically no defense between these guys. And they are on enemy teams, it's just they don't know each other exist. Yeah, that's just they're noobs and they don't know each other exist, is what it seems to come down to. Yeah. So, and now I go T2. Maybe I need a couple energy storage before going to T2 is a definite marker of I need something. Like a definite marker to look for. The other thing is I need to feel able to reclaim this T1 factory before I go T2. Yeah, pushing that hill wasn't worth it. I know he's got pounders. I know he's invested a lot into it. It's just not worth it. It would have been far better. Yeah, there's about 500 metal lost there. That I could have... if I'd have reclaimed the units, then I'd have had an extra, say, 50% metal. So, an extra 750 metal that would have gone into that Tech 2 plant. Okay. Okay, so these guys are still at war here, for now. So maybe I don't have to worry about this. I'm getting to T2 before they are. I'm just thinking it's like, it would be so easy to push in through here, or push in through there, but I don't need to, say, because they're already wasting their resources. They're not, like, securing themselves even more. So, I don't really have to worry about that. And then we've got CaptainBlue up here is investing a ton more of resources into defending himself. So he's not worth pushing. The only reason... and he's investing into military, so that if I take out his base, then I have to deal with his army. I'm probably not going to be able to really get that much reclaim. I'd probably be able to do a lot more if I took on Genjuro. Maybe it's worth, but it's possibly worth going for a Tech 2. Maybe. Okay, so combo up there. Okay, that's an interesting point. Yeah, and someone else is doing the attacking for me there, but not down here. Not down here. So, I also build a bit of a sea army, which is a bit of a waste, to be honest. I probably should have porked the channels. And that's it. Nothing more than that. That would buy me at least time. If they're trying to attack, it would buy me time to put out an army, because a destroyer outranges the defenses. Although, yeah, a destroyer, it would even outrange the turret. Because that's 700 range on that. That has 470 range. Okay, so yeah. it looks like Harpoon would be my best defense. That's 186. Harpoon would be by far my best defense, I reckon. And just throw a few of them in the channel. If I did one Harpoon for each of those I'd built, that would be 3 in each channel. That would be worth it. I eventually, like, come over here and get this reclaim. But, yeah. It's kind of tempting to go, it's like, okay, so there's a con bomb up there, maybe I can push. But he has such a huge army that it's really not worth it. He's invested how much into this army? He's invested more into that army than he's going to get from that con bomb. So it's really not worth me trying to push through there. What is worth it, though, is I've just scouted this T2 lab and seen there's almost no defense there. Because I just scouted through some blitz. So what I'm doing is I'm going to bring down all my blitz and I'm going to take that out. That's awesome. That was a great move. I definitely worth it. Yeah, sorry, in fact I should have put extra into the army to secure this area, I reckon. Okay, so he hadn't just got the T2 lab, so what's happening here is he's fighting the other guy. That's interesting to note. The other thing to note is that Genjuro has just broken through here, so now would have been the perfect time to attack him. So if I'd have invested in a land army rather than those ships there, perfect time to just come through and take out his base. And I should take note of that. The fact that he's been warring and suddenly this should look like a base or something. Maybe it's worth assuming. Maybe it would also be worth sending out air scouts. That would be something to try. Just sending out some air scouts, seeing what's going on here, seeing that he's still open here, that he's just won the war here, and just pushing out, because at this point in time, if I pushed correctly, I should be able to have this entire portion of the map all to myself. That's huge. That's like a third of the map at least. And considering that fans up here having like this much of the map, that would definitely be worth it. Because what's going to happen here, because they're all fighting. What's going to happen here is I'm going to completely obliterate this. Okay, I set target there, I set target there. I should have taken out the commander. Take out that. Actually keep firing, because I need to keep firing, otherwise I'm going to lose my units for nothing. Take out the factory, and like constantly bring in reinforcements maybe? Okay, because I would have needed more reinforcements. I couldn't have taken on the commander as well. But I've just taken out his base. I should push to this, because what I should be able to do as well, if I've got a bunch of resources that could have been put into Jaguars to come down here, secure up to here, and secure up to this front. Buy this for me as well. And then once I've got that, radar here sees that there's nothing here. Scout it to make sure it's not just a radar jammer, of course. And then I can hold up to here, and I can just keep gradually pushing around here. That would have been amazing. That would have also given me the space, say, to eco safely down here, or something like that. Potentially expand navally up into this area. So that's a huge amount of... If we see how many extractors I have currently, how much do I have? I've got 25, 26, 27 extractors. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. That would have almost doubled. That like 50% extra, 60, 70% extra economy just in T1 mexes. That would have been amazing. And it would have all been possible if I hadn't put that much into those ships. I'm not that vulnerable to ships anyway, so I don't really need to worry about it. Plus, I coulda, shoulda porked. It's like, I didn't need that much pork in terms of like, let's even see, how much is it to Shark's Tooth across that? I don't know, it doesn't say. We need a widget that says, when you draw a line like this, how much would that be? What would the cost be? That's like 30 of them. Okay, that's 450 metal, which would be a lot if I did both channels. Would be about 1,000 metal, but I've put 3,000 metal into that. So if I put 1,000 metal into each choke point in terms of static defense, that would be so much better than what I've done here. Because 3,000 metal, that could also be a T2 shipyard, and I could already be upgrading stuff. And if I invested in naval build power, then I'd have the ability to defend myself if some sort of an offensive thing came through. I don't, because it's like, I can't really necessarily assume that I'm not going to be attacked, and that's why I'm building this army. But it's very clear that there's nothing for me to attack. There's this out here, I guess. But it's like so far away that it's like, I could get metal from it, maybe. Like there's about, say, 3,000 metal between those two spaces. So I could kind of go for it. With this forest too, it's like build a couple of seacons and just go straight up there and try to take it. If I bring a submarine, then I can clear out the mexes. If I bring 3 subs, then I can take out the comm and get the reclaim from that too. So maybe that's all, maybe that's worth it. To like just keep pushing in that sort of a format. If I'd have just sent like a single scout ship up there, maybe if I'd sent another scout ship through this channel, I could have seen that there was nothing anywhere, and maybe even snuck a constructor through and got those metal extractors for free. Who knows? Yeah. So, let's get back to this. I commented on this area over here. I commented on putting extra resources into taking this and potentially up to here. In truth, we could probably go further all the way around to there and all the way around to there. I do want to comment that if I do that, then I've like pinned myself between this and the rest of the map, which is kind of what happened. So I made it like so it was necessary, but I'm kind of between him and the rest of the map anyway. And so potentially what should happen after I come out there is that I immediately go, right, you need to die. And get rid of him, because I know that I have to take him out. And I think later I try to push up here. I go, okay, they're just pawns. Let's push up there. Because I was trying to go up to Fan. But I think what I should have done is immediately just gone and, like, taken out Genjuro. And closed it to the edge of the map. And at this point, it should almost be very clear that the fighting has stopped down here and that it's time to attack in here. Right now is the perfect time. So I need to be aware of that. I need to be observing. I've got radar on here as well. If I could have radared, say, well, that, I mean, it can't actually see up onto the land that much. A radar on there could see some. And I don't know if I can actually see all these wrecks over here. So, I don't know. But if it's possible for me to tell that they've stopped fighting down there, now's the perfect time for me to attack. Yeah, but I can't actually see anything there. Alright, let's keep going. There's this. There's this up here. If I could... How many Jaguars could I have for that cost? Yeah, I could have 10 Jaguars for the cost. It would clean this out and get this. So yeah, that's what I should have done. Rather than defending naval, which, I mean, how much of my eco is that right on the coast there? That's like half of what I've got. But again, yeah, pork the choke point. Pork the choke point. Because I've got these idle constructors doing that anyway. And go for land army. The other thing I totally should be doing is ramping my energy, because as I'm starting to convert mexes, then my energy requirements are going up. So I need, the instant I'm once I'm T2, I just need to never stop ramping my energy, because that's going to kill me in a bit. Because right now, I'm living off fans excess here, which is okay, but it's certainly far from ideal. Yeah, and now I'm going for an energy storage. But, yes. This was a really good attack here. I love that I got all that reclaim, because that was a huge amount of reclaim there. And now we've got across our team, we've got a definite eco lead. And that's actually, I've got about 2/3 of that. But yeah. Yeah. Totally a perfect time for me to push him out. And if I... No, it's not a perfect time, it's too late. And in here, probably, I should pork this pass. It's a choke point, I don't want to really push out of it. That's too much effort. Maybe? If I could... Okay, I need to do one thing at a time. That's an established base. This is a dead base that I've killed, and is very... It would be very easy for me to clean up and get the territory and control it. This is next target, because it's between me and the edge of the map, and so I need to get rid of it ASAP. And then finally this corner is the third target, because then that's the other corner of the map, and then I'll have all of this, and then I can just slowly probably close that off between me and Fan, and then we can push into the rest of the map. So that's probably the way I should go about it. It should be 1, 2, 3, 4. Something like that. I hope you can read my horrible writing on the map. Awesome. Other thing I need is a radar vehicle to come down here with this. Yeah, and here's me struggling with energy. I go for a fusion. I mean, I don't really have a choice, but I should have done that sooner, because now I don't have the energy to expand down here. And that's really, really gonna slow me down. Port, solid defense. So many free targets now that I'm T2 that I can kill, get a ton of reclaim, like an insane amount of reclaim. You know, if this had been hovercraft, I could have also killed them. Anything, I think anything would have been more useful than those ships. Anything. Almost literally anything. Although, that said, if I just porked these passes, it wouldn't have kept out hovercraft. So that's something to consider. But yeah, there I'm sending up those constructors. Probably should have sent a scout ship ahead of them rather than waiting on radar and stuff like that. Definitely also built the radar, but send a scout ship ahead of it. And attacking up here is maybe okay, because in theory I can get the reclaim from it. But there are easier targets. There's down here where I can get the metal extractors. And as it turns out, this is a team with a huge amount of defense. And yeah, I built flak there. And so that was picking the wrong battle. I think I did it in theory to close the distance between me and Fan. But Fan is doing really well on his own, so I don't think he needs it. I'm also not microing this. I shouldn't have looked away there. And I shouldn't have gone in there, I should have pulled out. I should have made sure I killed the bull, and then pull out. Bringing in reclaim bots is good, though. I mean, because if I'd have taken those Jaguar down here, I would have cleared through this and run straight through, for one thing. Yeah, need a second fusion. I mean, I do build a second fusion, but I should have been much more aggressive about expanding my energy capacity right then. Okay. I do need to think about this, because I have said it's like I need to work around the map in sort of that fashion. Is that true? In theory, I get the metal from that, but in theory, I'm also taking a defended base, which is why I should take out this first, because it's easy pickings, it's cheap, it's effective, I get the mexes there, etc. That's another huge amount of resources that I can get, versus this, which is an established base with established defense, which it's clear that I'm fighting more than one player now, because I've had this guy's units come over and I've had support come in from the top of the map. But what I've also done here is by attacking that, I've incited. Probably it would have been, because the problem wasn't really the T2 air he threw at me. Although it may have been worth bringing a flak, even though I'm running with Jaguars. Maybe it would have been worth bringing a flak anyway, but maybe it would have been more worth having energy and the ability to put up an air screen so that I had mobile anti-air that could freely defend anywhere on the map. That would have been worth it. Okay, so yeah, they're planning to take me out in Italy. Alright. Yeah, this is still idle over there. I mean, the theory with me coming through here and trying to attack Spookums is if I can attack with Fan, then we get potentially more efficient. We're working together, so we've got double the army, which means we've got like 4 times the efficiency, or something crazy like that. Bringing in flak here, that's good. And at this point, I should have left this constructor here porked it because I know they've got a considerable army, they're growing their forces, and I should have found another direction to attack. I think that's what I should have done. It's like, I don't want to fight you now, I'm just gonna pork if you're gonna try to attack me. I'm gonna leave you alone, I'm gonna ignore you, and I'm going to go another way. I mean, at this point, I've still got a significant advantage on our team has a significant lead over most other teams. I think I've definitely got the eco lead over everyone, although Fan's doing really well in terms of eco of everyone. He could have been doing so much better, and if it had had Tech 2 and been able to secure this area, that would have been awesome, because fighting over that area really didn't do much for him. But, we've definitely got the lead. We've definitely got a very significant lead over most teams. The exception would be Blue, where we're kind of neck and neck with them. Blue's probably actually 50% ahead of us, or something like that. And maybe rather than fighting them, is like, just take the easy wins and get the advantage over them by bringing other teams down. So we're not just getting an advantage over Blue team, we're getting an advantage over every team. Because it's like, if we just war with Blue, then, which is what happens, then what happens is that Genjuro and StarDoM, basically massively boost their eco. So that's the problem with that. Yeah, so I finally expanded to here, but if I'd have taken this out earlier, could have got all that reclaim that he would have used over there and all of that sort of stuff. So there's that. What am I doing? Okay, I'm really dedicated thinking of how I can take out Blue team. Is there... Because I was on voice chat with Fan, so there's no in-game communication with him, really. Yeah, I should have finished pushing out here. Got a radar. Got a radar. I should have really finished off this rather than just leaving it to be. We turn off player view. This is also extremely vulnerable. This is extremely vulnerable. And by pushing them out there, I've left myself defenseless. Maybe this is evidence with that the ships were okay. The problem with that statement, though... Okay, let's think about this again. So if I'm pushing everyone on ground around me, they can't really afford to put all that much into ships. Although I'm the most vulnerable person to ships in the area, which is really bad for me, because then I have to build I have to defend myself against ships, but I can't use ships myself to attack other people, so building ships isn't a great option, and that's really kind of unfortunate. Which is why I'm kind of in the dilemma, do I build the ships? Do I not build the ships? Kind of a thing. So I guess the solution to that in significant part would be to try to firstly destroy anyone who's able to, like, really assault my vulnerability. Like, my number one vulnerability here is to ships ships and hovercraft and that. So I need to take out everyone who's really able to assault me in that. And that would be firstly Genjuro, because he's got this pass into here. He's got this pass. He's got this pass and this pass. If I'm worried about, say, if I'm worried about Captain, he's only got this one entrance, which is relatively easy to deal with. But because I've got so many points that I need to defend against Genjuro, he's my number one enemy. The next enemy would be Star, because he's got 2 entrances. And then again, we've got Grenwacht, who's dead and has kind of moved up here. But in theory, it's like these guys could come through there. This guy could come around through there. I don't really have to worry about that. So, I'm most vulnerable against Genjuro, and the best way to deal with that would be to take him out. Because there's no real way to defend against that. What I sort of want to do is I want to, at the very least, control that choke point up there. Because this then becomes a series of choke points, so... Oh, this is kind of awkward. Because I can consider this a single choke point, sort of. Because we've got one choke point here on the land, which we could kind of move over to here. But we've got this choke point between this angle and this angle. Although we can close off that choke point by defending this. And so that's... So if we defend this, then we've got that angle and that angle. We defend this. It's still really unwieldy, but like defending this and this is a lot easier than defending these two. Yeah. That's a good choke point to have. If I defend this on that side of the water, so if I could push to that side of the water like I did over here, I don't even have to really threaten him. But if I can just secure something there with defenses, that leaves him really vulnerable with all that surface area that he has to defend, while I only have to defend this little choke point here. Because you can walk through that. I'm not sure of the details of it. Right. So, a K-bot constructor, for example, can walk basically anywhere on that slope through there. So, rather than defending here on this island, if at all possible, we want to defend over here on his side of the water. Because then otherwise, we give access to the water, which we don't want him to give access to the water. Likewise, over here, we want to defend this, because we don't want to have to defend the land and the water. We want to... And then we can, like, put a defense here in the water, which closes the choke point. So that's what we want to do. We don't... It's potentially okay to leave Genjuro alone and not be, like, super scared about him having all this surface area. If we defend this area, it closes the water. So we want to kind of form that line there, this line here, defend this here by, like, kind of a mass defense, defend that line there, that there, this here, and what happens down here. It's kind of a benefit to just defend up to there. Maybe expand out, potentially. But that's the choke point we've got in the area, because the problem with expanding further than that is it's not a choke point, so we're pretty weak. So maybe we can expand out there, but we can't really hold this, so it really does have to be taking this before we take this area. Maybe if it's like hyper vulnerable, we can kill it, reclaim it, get the maxes up, but we can't invest too much in it and expect it to stay alive until we've dealt with Genjuro down here. Because once we've dealt with Genjuro, then our front line can sort of become this, and it's all choke pointy again. So yeah, that's approximately what it needs to look like. We've got this here, this here, this here, this here, and this here. That there, that there, that there. That would be the appropriate fronting. And if we had that sort of fronting, we'd be okay. Awesome. We're just gonna leave those scribbles there for now. Because I will probably change my mind on it. But yeah, what we're still doing is sort of orienting ourselves to push against this. It is sort of an easy target because, but again, if we push into here, that's kind of a choke point and we gain 4 maxes, but as stated, taking Genjuro out here is probably our best bet because it's safest. It works best with the choke points because then we can, and it doesn't expose us to more enemies by taking out Genjuro, and it unlocks the opportunity to control the bottom right corner of the map. Okay, yeah. The other thing is even though I can kind of take out blue here, we're sort of at a point where by fighting blue, we're taking pressure off other people, who border us. So at this point in the time is when I should start sending out air scouts to kind of assess who I need to target. Is that an EMP launcher? Why is he building an EMP launcher? Is that an accident? Is that supposed to be an anti-nuke? I think it's probably supposed to be an anti-nuke. Because I don't know what he'd be targeting with an EMP launcher at this point in time. Oh well. Okay. Yeah, oh, awesome. Okay, now I'm upgrading metal extractors in the water. I'm going over the hill with spiders. Even though EvolvedMonkey, and this is the crucial point, EvolvedMonkey is preparing to attack this way. Blue still does have the eco advantage, but as stated, if I want to get an advantage over blue and everyone else on the map, I need to take on easier targets than taking on blue. Something that I can just roll over in like 5 seconds and get the metal extractors from, like that. And an intelligently set up defense could kind of use this as a choke point. It's not an ideal choke point, but for T2 scale, it's choke pointy enough. Like, you see those weapon ranges, it's like one weapon covers most of the front, and so it's choke pointy enough. And so, yeah, this should be defended more, knowing that I've incited them. Knowing that I can see, because I'm very sure, yeah, that's all on radar, so I can see it. So I just pork that, and I don't worry about it. He's put stuff into units, and so I've got an advantage over him anyway. I don't really need to push that. I mean, if I can kill it really easily, then I can get the reclaim, and that's the thing. But I can't kill it really easily. Because this is Team FFA, and it's not just him, it's someone else. And it still would be, like, trivial to assault Genjuro. Yeah, still no defense here. I've also got very little anti-air defense. I don't have a fighter screen or anything. So this is also idle over here. It could be... I could be establishing territory for it. Probably should put a lot more build power into this, this area here. Is this CaptainBlue building those? Yeah. And see, okay, he's defending this now really heavily, and so there goes my easy metal. And yeah, there we go. Lack of air screen is really, a huge disadvantage. So I probably should have gone for an air screen before I went for an advanced fusion there. Should have probably been the order of priority. Also, it stands to reason that if they're going to EMP the pork, if I space out my units so that it's standing behind the pork, that means that I can just bring it in as they attack. Because that should be entirely feasible, is that entire thing. And see, I've taken out EvolvedMonkey's base here, but I haven't destroyed his advanced fusions. I've just kind of vaguely slowed them down. I should have stopped fighting that earlier. I shouldn't have gone for the spiders over that hill. Maybe attack nuke would have been worth it if I could have done that, but I don't have attack nuke. Here's a question. Where's the constructor? Let's just pause for a bit so that we don't lose the ability to see what's going on. I reckon we could get a constructor up this hill. Along that path. So we could also take this path up the hill. Could also take something like that path, it looks like. Can they get up this side? Looks like there might be a path up there. No, that's not a path. This is a path, though. Any other paths? There's this here, I think. I feel like there's one here as well. I don't think any unit could fit through that one, but maybe. That looks like it could almost be a path. But again, I don't know if a unit could fit through it. Up there. Up here, maybe? This is something to try out. Because if we can get a T2 K-Bot Con up that hill, then we can fairly simply, or even just T1 constructors, and a single Guardian Gauntlet or whatever, or maybe even better, a T2 cannon, then we can EMP that. Can we get up this hill, though? Over here? I don't think so. But we could airdrop something up on the hill. Because if we could airdrop a T2 constructor, or just even use a T2 air constructor to start whatever, or something, it's like, yeah, so we've got to try this later and actually see if we can get a constructor up that hill. But I don't think anything is getting up this hill. Which makes it even better because we don't have to defend anything up here from ground units. Other than like spiders or something, but just like a few T2 cannons. And this base is dead, this base is dead, this base is dead. That's a really easy way to just clear it out. On that topic, we've got radar jammers here. It's not reasonable at all to assume that there's nothing in this, so it would be entirely worth getting, do we have a Juno at this point? Okay, we don't have a Juno, but it would be worth putting up a Juno so that we can take out those jammers and start lobbing this with a T2 cannon. That would start wearing him down and give him something to worry about. And yeah, here they're getting all the reclaim because I don't have any ground army because I've been investing in spiders to kill maybe a T2 factory and maybe a fusion and not hit the majority of their defenses. I don't think the spiders were worth it, really. And now they get all this reclaim here, like, probably 5,000-6,000 originally. We're also accessing a ton of energy. That's just something that's a thing. Yeah, and that's where it starts to become really obvious that we don't have enough anti-air. They're flying like leashes over the hill and stuff, which is where we really need a, an air scout. And with accessed, just because it's about 700 energy, 600 energy is 10.3 metal. So just doing rough approximations here, Fan and I together have accessed about 20,000 metal here. 20,000 metal. That's 2 full advanced fusion reactors that we've accessed in unconverted energy. That's horrible because we could have a ton more resources. So in light of that, what I should have done is I should have taken one of these constructors building fusions and put it straight on converters a lot sooner. Yeah, definitely should have done that. Definitely should have paid closer attention to that. I'm starting to remedy it now, but part of the issue was that I've had this super constricted space layout in this tight area, and I haven't been able to build around those nanos at all. Could get some mileage. If I had some res bots, I could reclaim the basic converters and upgrade them to Tech 2 converters, but I'm also just on relatively uneven ground, so I've also trapped this T2 constructor on the uneven ground, I believe. He can't get out of there, I think, because, yeah. And he definitely could build additional converters there, but he just didn't. yeah, that T2 constructor's trapped in there, it looks like. Okay, let's resume. We're a third of the way through the game, by the way. And we've still got this area in basically entirely undefended that we could be putting better extractors on. It's good that we porked that choke point there. And we're accessing even more energy now. But the excess is slowly coming to a close. And then we've got tons of resources. And immediately with that, the thing becomes reclaim, get out a new army, or just repork that front, grab a constructor, and get converters, because accessing between 2,000 and 5,000 energy per second, that's a ridiculous amount of energy that's being thrown down the drain. We do have a significant eco lead, and like destroying EvolvedMonkey's converters really slowed him down. But yeah, probably should have gone straight for a T2 air factory and gone for a T2 fighters. Because I think one of the things that happens later is that I get bombed. But yeah, anti-nuke ships, probably could have afforded to put them out earlier. Actually, anti-nuke ships are a really good source of energy for the cost. That's really cool. They got northwest. Interesting. I didn't see that during the game. But still accessing a crazy amount of energy. That's now about 30,000. Yeah, or approaching 30,000 metal accessed in just energy, which is 3 advanced fusions, which is more advanced fusions than Genjuro has. Slowly working on it. These should have gone and assisted a constructor to build converters and stuff. Should have put out more ships to assist the constructor that was building converters. At this point in the game, could probably start putting out defensive ships as well. Because again, I'm extremely vulnerable. If I'm not going to like seal this off at the choke points I drew earlier, I need a standing army in the water that's able to defend. Probably a bunch of cruisers, because they're sort of mixed sub-land defense. And not knowing what's going to attack me, I kind of need to be ready for anything, basically. Yeah. I probably should have left an anti-nuke over this base, not moved both of them in there. These constructors should be out building nanos rather than guarding him. Now they're just going to get in his way. And yeah. Rebuilding the mexes, going to put up some pork, and going to bomb Spookums. I thought these guys were allied, but clearly not. I was bombing Spookums because I thought they were allied and I didn't want them to get the advantage. But coulda, shoulda bombed Genjuro instead, say. Though destroying Spookums let Fan have more breathing room, but I don't think he needed the breathing room because he wasn't using what he had already well enough. Bombing Spookums was not a good move. Again, maybe if I had attack nuke, because attack nuke is really cheap. But it would have been far better and far more opportune for me to have a, an air screen. Because that's a huge thing I'm lacking. I lose converters, I lose nanos. It's all round and not good look. And I really need nanos because I'm accessing resources. Yeah. Yeah, like, if I had, say, bombed CaptainBlue instead, CaptainBlue's right in the choke point, but EvolvedMonkey just blew up to attack nukes, say. So, I didn't need to be doing that with something, with, like, units that I can lose. Because that's the thing with attack nuke, you lose nothing by attack nuking, maybe a little bit of metal. But with bombers, you lose quite a bit, actually. Yeah, that should have been built further back. Now it's just almost 1,000 metal lost, because it was built in range of enemy fire. I didn't even have a radar jam, I should have built that first. And not worth building the penetrators, I think. I mean, say EvolvedMonkey was a threat, which he really isn't, because he's pinned between... He's, like, got Genjuro to worry about, and so I stopped him from Genjuro. He's got StarDoM to worry about. And so I stopped EvolvedMonkey from worrying about StarDoM, because he's not by attacking him, because it's not a threat to me, because there's a mountain in between us. And, yeah. I mean, okay, it wasn't the worst idea. It wasn't the worst idea. But it wasn't the best. The best idea would have been killing something that I can expand into. Like, down here. Like there. And the real obvious choice would have been Genjuro. This also isn't enough pork down here in the choke point, especially noting this. I probably should have had a constructor on standby. It's about time that I pork this, but I don't believe I actually get the opportunity to. I also idle that tech tree factory, which shouldn't be idled. And finally I'm building ships. But what's the damage per second on that? It's... so 600 damage per second on a Dreadnought. And 400 almost... 350 damage per second on a Paladin. For a third of the price, half the energy price, but it's fine. Yeah, and now I'm getting tac nuked. Which is horrible. And yeah, here's all the, and that's probably like the point I can say like I really died, is this point, because I'm starting to be under attack from both sides. And if I'd have had a T3 screen, which is why I built the T3 factory, I did have a bit of a T1 screen, but not enough. I lose all this, I lose all the build power, I lose all my metal production, and so now I'm accessing almost 13,000 energy a second, because I hadn't defended against aircraft. And then I lose all my base down here. What's the health on a Dreadnought? 8,000 versus 4,500. Yeah, it would have been better for me to build Paladin rather than Dreadnought. And then I lose this. Because that is 20,000 metal worth of units against 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, let's just do some math here. I don't think I had I don't think I had a pulsar there, but let's say 3,500. Okay, 3,500 plus 8 times 680. So I had about 9,000 metal worth of defenses there, where he had about, at the very least, 20,000 metal worth of army. So I just didn't have enough defense. Although that kind of begs the question, like, how much defense do you need for 20,000 metal worth of army? Because I thought T2 for starters, because like if they were tanks, tanks would have had higher speed, higher damage, higher health for the same cost. For cheaper, actually. So how much defense would I actually have needed in order to keep away a Tech 1? Did I have a pulsar there? Because maybe I didn't have a pulsar, in which case I would have only had 5,000 metal worth of defenses, in which case he outnumbers me 4 to 1. At which point I'm like, yeah, there's absolutely no way. I did take out like 4,000 metal worth of his army, so if I doubled my defenses, then probably would have been equal to him. So I don't know, maybe it's about even. Then we bring in ships, and we're bringing in these long-range ships in melee. And this is a thing I rag on other players for doing, but it's something I've just done. I've like, these aren't melee units. And here's a bit of a thing. I'm not okay. I've queued up an anti-nuke, but I've already got anti-nuke ships, so I shouldn't have done the anti-nuke. I should have gone straight for Tech 3. Not that that's gonna make a huge difference. I also should have put, should have put effort in re-establishing my metal extractors, because at this point I still out-eco Genjuro, but for how much longer is the problem. And then I've got these ships, they're missing almost every shot, and then they get surrounded, which is the entire choke point thing. That's the thing I was saying about 1, 2, 3 entrances, plus this one down here if he chose to use it. It would have been far more opportune to put out the cruisers. More effective, sorry, to put out the cruisers. Yeah, and then I'm putting out, also putting out Razorbacks, and not expanding and claiming the metal extractors, which would have been powerful if I could have done that. and Genjuro is putting 100% of his resources into this spam now, while I'm dividing my attention between land and water. So I coulda, shoulda brought these Razorbacks around, potentially to the island or something, sat them around. So I'm just gonna take a screenshot of that, because that's his eco. I'll actually take it with him selected so I can see what his eco is. And yeah, he's putting 500 metal a second into units. And I'm not. Actually, no. No, yeah, okay, I'm putting most of it into units. But only partly the units that are fighting down here. And CaptainBlue is attacking Star, which is potentially argument why I should have left him alone. Because they share a common enemy, while Genjuro doesn't share a common enemy. Although I couldn't really know that these two were a team until this point when I, like, see Genjuro. I see these. Although, no, I really couldn't have known. I could guess, but I couldn't know, I guess. Okay, so this is where the EMP launch is, like, doing damage. It's stopping me from actually building units. And here we see that my Razorbacks are actually being really effective. And I've built this epoch over here, this flagship, which is absolutely doing nothing to help, and I'm building a second one. Okay. These units, these Rectors, I'm probably gonna drop to half speed here. Sorry, guys. No, I'm gonna pause. These Rectors should have immediately come out and start resurrecting on the front and getting this, or reclaiming or something. I shouldn't have left that. This is in my base and it's safe and I can deal with it later. I should have dealt with the contestable resources. Okay. So this is alright. I'm going for cruisers. I'm building these laser towers, and I'm bringing my epoch in right to here. The epoch probably should have sat right about here or something. It's sort of the back of the base. But sitting right up here, it's right where the units are coming from, and it's a ranged unit. So, being a ranged unit, I really don't need to bring it so close to the front. And this is, by the way, this is the battle where I lose the game, eventually. It takes maybe another half hour to kill me or something like that. But this is the battle where I lose the game, which is why I'm going to be paying so much attention to it. Okay, something worth noting is all the military pressure is on the sea from Genjuro, and is... Okay, so we've got the cataphract up here. That is 8,000 metal worth of investment versus 19,000. So I want to watch that battle closely. But before I do that, I want to say I'm putting 100 metal a second into C. And he's putting 150... 250 metal. Yeah, 250 metal into C is what Genjuro is doing. That's what he's investing. So currently, I'm at a huge disadvantage. Okay, that's another 30 metal a second. But I'm also not building the best units for the job, because the Dreadnought is an artillery unit, And you don't want to build artillery against scouts, basically. I want to be building the cruisers. And that's what I switched to here, which was the correct move. That dreadnought should not be in the factory, and the dreadnought should not be on the front line with cruisers. Are these the only 12? They have a huge... So, they've been really effective, it looks like. They've got 91 kills. I'm curious how much metal they've killed, but we'll see. Okay, so what's happening here? They've come in one at a time, and so the first one dies. We walk up to them. We kill 2, and he kills a second one of mine. You're kidding me. So, what are these? His cataphract have already paid for themselves. They've just killed 2 of my razorbacks. Straight up. And where they've done that. Wow, okay. Wow. And then I just idle them, which means I'll lose more. So, or no, I sent them in, okay. Ah, I'm not watching the attack. I send it in. Sorry, we want to be on player camera. So what happens here? I send it in. And then I look away. And what happens is he kills another 2. How much health does the cataphract have? How? Okay, so a cataphract is more tanky than a razorback. I think that's what we can take from this. So 4 cataphract is the exact cost. 4 cataphract is the exact cost of a razorback. It has the same damage per second, lower energy cost. So, same damage per second. Not quite. So, slightly less damage per second. More range. Lower damage, slightly lower damage per second. And what's the health here? 17,000 health. More health. Cataphract, the hovercraft, are a better unit than the razorback. Except the razorback fires lots of shots. So if you're pushing cataphract, you don't want... How many cataphract do we have to... What's a bantha? A Thor. Let's go for a Thor. It's EMP damage. I wish they didn't include EMP damage with the other damage per second. So, I don't understand. I really don't understand this DPS. I wish they could bring back the old interface for it, because it actually made sense. Heavy lightning cannon, damage per second, 1032 in brackets. There are no 3845. What? Where does that come from? There's no relationship with anything there. I don't get that. It's like, what do the brackets mean? They're meaningless. But apparently it's got the same damage per second as a Razorback. It's got 50,000 health. So it's tankier. It's a little slower. It's a little slower. What's its range? 640 range. So it's got a higher range, which would be good. It also wouldn't have the laser damage fall off. So I think Thor would have been the unit to go with here. Rather than Razorbacks. And then they've also got the EMP to, like, absolutely disable those. Lunkhead are more expensive, lower range, slightly faster. Slightly, not enough to really make a difference. Slightly faster. They have area of effect, I guess. Okay. Lower burst, but higher fire rate. I guess it is a bit of a trade-off then. I don't know. But I think the unit to go for would have been a Thor, not a Razorback. I think that's what I can learn from this. That said, the burst damage really doesn't line up against the, because it would be 3 shots, which would be, that would be 2 shots each. And if we have, how many of these costs the same as a Thor? How many of these cost the same as a Thor? Let's go. 10 of them cost the same as a Thor. 10 times 2,000, 20,000. 2 all-in shots from these would destroy a Thor. Plus... So what, you want small units? You want like a pawn spam against them? I thought that artillery and ranged units weren't supposed to be, like, wouldn't be tanky. But like, it outranges a Thor. And so 10 of them for the same cost, approximately. They've got the same... They've got the same, approximately... So you don't want to build Thor, you want to build Cataphract. How does, say, a Shiva compare to them? A Shiva's 50% more expensive. It's got extra. It's got... A Shiva has... A Shiva has less range. 8,500 health. Okay, so a Shiva has a better damage ratio. Okay, a Cataphract is, in theory, 3,800 XP. So apparently these have a huge amount of bonus XP. Which, 12,000. What's a new Razorback? 12,000. Okay. But they go into the battle having, like, extra XP. They've already destroyed 4 Razorbacks, though. So 10 of them would be less health than a Thor. So a Thor is maybe slightly more effective in terms of just a full face-to-face thing. Except they outrange the Thor. They're slower than the Thor as well. So that's a plus for the Thor. And then the Thor has the EMP weapon, which would change the tide of the battle. But then you'd have to micro that to use the EMP weapon. Problem is, it doesn't actually... the Banther's weapon doesn't actually sound like Doom. Oh well. So I've got the Titan. That's what, 1500 damage per second, which is half as much more than the Thor. It only costs half as much, again, more than the Thor, although the energy cost is a lot lower. And it's got the laser, which is 860 range. So Banthas are probably the unit to be building here, not Thor. Although Banthas don't have a lot. They have 6200 health? Only? Only 6200 health for the Titan? It's not a Bantha, it's a Titan. Its damage per second prospect is better, because it would also outrange the Sokolov. The Cataphract. It's not called a Sokolov anymore. So it would outrange, technically. How many for the cost? You'd get 13 of them for the cost. So 13 times 3800 is 50,000. So it would out health it would out health the Sokolov. Okay, so not Razorback. A Thor is pretty good if you can micro it, but if you can't micro it, go with the Titan. I think that's the conclusion to draw here. And wait till you outnumber them a lot more before attacking, because they're pretty tanky. Razorbacks would have been fine if you outnumbered them, but you don't. You really don't. And so all that is feed. They're gonna resurrect it, and you've done absolutely no damage here. And haven't reclaimed or resurrected or anything because you've been busy resurrecting an advanced fusion that you don't even have the conversion power for. We are at 3.9 million energy excess at this point in time, and we've had ample time to rebuild, because we've built like a few epochs and stuff. We've had ample time to rebuild our energy conversion at this point, I reckon. So, and consider that Fan's energy excess is partly our energy excess, because he looks like he's using all of his. So if we go... Well, plus Fan wouldn't be accessing energy if we weren't, because we'd be using all of Fan's excess and converting it. And so if we go, that would be 5.2 million divided by 600 times 10.3. That is 90,000 metal in terms of energy we've accessed right there. So I'm drilling this home because it's really important to understand that, for me to understand, and I need to get it, that it's like I can't afford to excess energy. Something that would also be really powerful. I'm kind of overwhelmed at this point in the game, but constructors and just rebuilding on these islands. If I could like get constructors, and where is a T1 constructor? I know I've got one. If I could build, I don't know, beamers, a line of beamers along the island, that covers most of the water, makes it pretty hard for him to get through. We could do that along here. That would close most of that off. Do it along there, and that closes off that passage. We could close that off, close this off, close this. Beamers along there closes the entirety of that passage. We can get about half of that passage, and then get the rest of it by closing off up there, along there. If we just pepper the coastlines with beamers, that gets rid of the hovercraft problem. And even if we do just laser towers, that's mostly good, or pop-up turrets or whatever. Yeah. And now what we're doing, we're overextending because we didn't see the hovercraft coming. And we've got no metal income at this point. And then we're trying to use the epoch as a melee weapon. What's the range on its smaller thing? So 800, so it still has pretty ample range on its smaller one, so it could afford to be behind everything. And we've got another epoch and a bit, where the epoch's just not a good investment, because I want to demonstrate this too. We've got 17,000 metal in an epoch. If we built 17 paladins with 17,000 metal, so 17 times 17 times 357. Yeah. 17 times 357 would be 6,000 damage per second for the same cost. Plus half of it is lasers, so it's actually going to be hitting. But then also note that it's like an epoch has one weapon on one side which won't be firing half the time. So yeah. I honestly think the Dreadnought should have longer range, but oh well. In order to be useful, because the Paladin already makes up half its range and it's way faster. Okay. So this is alright, but now I've lost all my build power on this, so I'm not even building ships coming out here. So, yeah, we're going back for build power. Yeah, and so now I'm outgunned by these T3 hovercraft, because I've got an epoch, I've got a flagship, which could possibly take it on, I guess, but everything else is just gonna die before the epoch can really deal with it. So yeah, he resurrects all my Razorbacks before they can do literally any damage. And I haven't even reclaimed or resurrected anything in this area. Not only that, I send my Razorbacks behind my Resbots, so my Resbots just die to like scouts and stuff. So that was mismanagement. And then here comes the rest of the hovercraft spam. Genjuro wasn't alone, so he's been ecoing hard ever since, and then he didn't eco hard for long before he started fighting me. So, yeah. Yeah, and so these flagships do, like, tear through those hovercraft. So long as the other ships actually deal with the scouts that are now an onslaught. So having an epoch wasn't a bad idea, I just needed to make sure I was investing in other ships too, and so the epoch probably should have come later, because it wasn't until he sent the T3 against me, and if we look here, because these are like too close to each other, I've only even got one epoch firing, so honestly speaking, I really only needed the one epoch. I only needed the one flagship for that kind of range to take on the heavier units. And potentially even I didn't need it because my lighter units could have done the damage. And Yeah, and because I haven't had lighter units, I haven't defended myself. These were too close. My defenses were too close to what they were trying to defend. So there wasn't. He was able to take out the nanos. They weren't spaced. It was all in one block. Basically, at this point, I have no build power to defend myself. So yeah, it was a bit of bad timing because I also lost all the build power up there, but just a bit of anti-air, like a fighter screen would have kept that alive. This needs to not be idle. I could probably even have thrown into a T2 shipyard. If I can build like 7 dolphins for a cruiser, what's the cruiser got on health? It's 4,500. So let's say 1,000 divided by 165. That's 6. Okay. 6 times 875. 875. So that's 5,000 health. Because you don't really need the extra range against the scout hovercraft, I guess. And then the weapons on the cruisers, the larger weapons are gonna miss. So you've got, what, 135 damage per second on them, which would be a huge amount of damage per second. Dolphins are probably the best units then to deal with the scout hovercraft. It's just build a ton of them. Though the paladins would have been the best T2 unit, the dolphins would be the best unit overall, because I believe they even outrange the scout hovercraft. Yeah, they outrange the scout hovercraft. So dolphin spam would have been fine. Dolphin spam backed up with a pox for the range or something like that. That would have been plenty. And that would have probably been able to push through to here, at which point I can get the advanced fusion. The other thing being that if I can get established build power on land, and actually got maybe a second Thor out, then if I hadn't gifted all these Razorbacks to him over here, then what they could have done at literally any time is just push through. Because Razorbacks would have been awesome against these scout hovercraft. They could have pushed through and it would have been GG right there. So I fed the Razorbacks. Okay, let's go in order. I didn't have an air screen. I fed Razorbacks. No, there was another thing before that. I didn't have converters was the first thing. I didn't have space for converters, which means I didn't have converters. I didn't have an air screen, which means I lost all my build power in my space. I didn't deny this area, so I had tac nuking my base, which meant I lost all the build power and converters there. I didn't... Yeah. Then I fed my Razorbacks against the Cataphract. I didn't build appropriate ships, and even at this point, I'm not building any ships. Is that factory blocked? That factory is blocked by that T2 constructor, it looks like. And I'm still building epochs. I built too many epochs rather than ships that could actually handle the units that were being thrown against me. And then my build power and the defenses protecting it weren't in an intelligent position. That's huge XP on that LLT though. It's got what's its max health? 1,300 max health on that LLT. It's got 160 plus it's almost got twice the damage per second of a regular LLT. That's cool. But yeah, so now I bring in my epochs to take out, because I can kind of tell that those are coming from down here. So I come in to take out the build power. Problem is I miss. I miss, because I didn't scout, because I didn't have scout airplanes, because I wasn't able to build them. Plus, those aren't spread out. Yeah, I didn't kill the nanos. I didn't fire at it for long enough. I should have scouted first. Yeah, I should have scouted first. Yeah, epochs are really good when they're spread out and when they're fighting against like Razorbacks or something like that. Actually, here would have been the perfect time for me to send these units in here and Genjuro would have died. That would have been GG for him. Maybe it'd have been able to degun half of it with this commander, but these could have come in here maybe. Worth a try, because then I can get the epochs to back them up. It would have stopped the thing. And I can kind of seed land at this point. It's not ideal, but I can. And I can afford to. I can grab my constructors and bring them away from land. Yeah, if only I hadn't fed those Razorbacks, I would have been able to push with actual units through. Because I would have even been able to push this at this point, so long as the Sokolov aren't there. Not Sokolov, sorry, Cataphract. Sokolov's the old name. So yeah, this was an entirely winnable game. And now that I'm actually building ships, it's like, I probably should have gone all in on the ships rather than hovercraft. I can't build them fast enough, I don't have nanos, but these should have built nanos then. They should have built nanos rather than guarding the factory, because I'm accessing, like, I think Fan isn't even using it. I'm a 40k metal excess, so it's just ridiculous resource excess. That constructed there's idle. I mean, I'm out of brain power at this point. Yeah. Yeah, these epochs coulda, shoulda been taking out the Razorbacks and freeing my land army. And then, yeah, my land army coulda, shoulda come through. And then he's got the sea factories. These dolphins were plenty. Those dolphins were plenty enough to deal with the naval threat. And then if the dolphins just work with the epochs, to destroy the Cataphract, then it's all good. But if the dolphins go in against the Cataphract alone, they're probably fine. But there just needs to be more of them, because if we just look at the dolphin there, that's like a really small amount overall. So like they're like all in on their own. The epoch were useful, but I only really needed one of them. Again, I'm gonna reiterate that. I really only needed one epoch. And then here the factory is clogging itself, which is really sad. I should probably take a screenshot of that for bug reporting purposes. Yeah, and I just didn't have enough units, because then he just brings all his units down. If I'd have brought those down earlier with this, it could have done something. But alone, and they're like all kind of on their own, it's not gonna do anything. And then all these ships that have just been sitting up there not doing anything, they could have held this. The ships could have killed the subs, could have switched over to subunits, and then we've got the blocked factory here again. and then these Razorbacks going in on their own, using them as melee weapons instead of ranged weapons is not ideal by any stretch of the imagination, and they just die. Plus, there's the entire problem it seems units have. They can't pick a target. What? Did you see that? It shot out the side. Okay. Fans eco. Fans got less energy production than me, but he's actually starting to convert most of my energy. But Fan kind of still has a smaller eco than me, but it's pretty big. At this point, I think Fan's got a larger eco than Star. But I don't have a larger eco than Genjuro anymore after losing land, and after losing land and I haven't been scaling for a while, and Genjuro continued to scale. So yeah, that's what the eco looks like at the moment. Yeah, these ships should be sideways to the front. And I reckon they should automatically turn. They should automatically turn so that they can fire when they're still. Yeah, because even now, I've almost got enough ships to hold, just not the build power to keep up with what they're throwing out. And there goes the rest of my, yeah. Yeah, I just had the open base, so if he would have pressured at the same time you did right there, maybe it could have worked. Maybe, but Fan's all the way up there. He'd have to go through so much to get down here. Because, like, he's still clearing out the obstacles in between me and him. And, like, I have sort of talked about it. It's like, could I have just focused on these guys and dealt with them? I don't think so. I don't think that would have been my best move at all. And I talked about earlier, I'm gonna have to upload this because it's almost a 2-hour stream at this point for 1 hour into the game. So, yeah. So, then at this point, Fan's now got a ridiculous eco from me. It's, Fan's eco is larger than Genjuro's, but not larger than Genjuro's and Star's. Yeah. And then that eco will slowly diminish over time, probably. That's not to say that Fan couldn't win, because this is something I pointed out in voice chat to him. He has all these areas that he can expand to. All this, and so that's a huge amount. Fan's still ecoing 30,000 energy per second at this point in the game. So there's a lot he could have done. There are mexes here that aren't upgraded. There are mexes here that aren't taken. So many mexes that aren't taken. There's all this reclaim. How much reclaim is that? Because at this point in the game, you almost need a factory dedicated repeat on res bots so that you can either res or reclaim. But there's 54,000 metal here. That's insane. And that's like, you could build 2 Krogoths with that. 2 Juggernauts, sorry. Almost 2 Juggernauts. So that's the sort of eco he's dealing with. He's also got the potential to like upgrade C eco, because there's 2 not upgraded mexes there. I don't know if he has a T2C. He does. He's got a... Oh, wait, no. That's not... That's a T1 Seacon. He's going to build a T2C factory. But yeah, he can upgrade those C extractors, and then he could... I reckon it would be really good for him to... like, he can pork this area here. He could at least establish a thing there, pork there, maybe pork there as well. And then establish a really strong presence. And kind of work out like that. He's got this T2 constructor which can start claiming nexus and stuff. Start establishing some sort of protection. He tried to nuke me. That's hilarious. He tried to nuke me. At least I had that anti-nuke ship. Yeah, but at this point, Fan's, I think, a bit of an inexperienced player, and so I know I was overwhelmed with just what I was dealing with, and so now Fan has to deal with that and this, because I kind of got frazzled. I needed to resign for my insanity at that point. I felt really bad about it because I didn't want to leave Fan alone. But I had to mentally check out for a few minutes before I could even come back. And yeah, I had to mentally check out for a brief period. But not only did I have to mentally check out, then we tried to play the next game, and I wasn't mentally able to play the next game, so I think I burnt out somewhat of the way through this game, and that happens. Like, there's so much going on, so many units. It's like, all the things I'm saying now are things that I can work out. Most of them I could probably work out during the game. Like, it's not like, I mean, I'm going about half speed through the game or something like that. Maybe a little slower than that. But, like, it's hard to think about all the things you need to do during a game. It's overwhelming. So, yeah. Fan looks like he's trying to clear out the top corner of this map. I probably wouldn't be doing that, because all the attacking and stuff he's doing over here, that's not attacking, that's actually benefiting him. I would leave TNT alone and just focus the attention on shoring up the part of the map you have. Probably take out iGame for fun, so that he can have all this area shored up, and then gradually work it out, so maybe he has this half of the map. And if he can work around to there, and not worrying about fighting StarDoM and Genjuro until it gets to that point, he'd be fine. But yeah. Alright, we're getting back to the game. So we've just talked about what Fan should be doing now in terms of what he should be targeting, priorities, in terms of expansion, map control, etc. So I don't really know what he should be doing with this area in here, because it's all basically dead. I'd probably get to like something like just reclaim as much as you can. Maybe these constructors, they can run away through here or try to do that. I think they'd actually make it, because there's no ranged units really there, so you could make it through to here and start building up something here or something like that. But we're talking in this sort of line in terms of first priority of expansion, second priority. Then maybe he takes the top left corner of the map and like boxes them in this bottom corner. And then if he has that control, that's it's going to be really powerful for him. But we'll resume the game now. What speed are we at? I'm just going to bump it up to 2. We did mention that he can be using this constructor to build something, anything here, potentially even porking here. Build some nanos, build some, get one of the constructors building nanos, get this to the tech tree constructor to build like annihilators and something to deal with the heavier units like the cataphract. Get another one to finish up the dragon's claw and maybe a few layers of dragon's claw to deal with that. Why aren't those closed? That's an issue with units just not closing, because they actually have extra health when closed, so it's advantageous for them to be closed whenever possible. There's nothing real. This unit's in range of the like pre-aiming something, maybe. If that's a thing. But yeah. Yeah, more Dragon's Claw. I wouldn't go for a factory yet. And I definitely only get one constructor to build the factory, otherwise they're just gonna push each other around. Yeah, I'd probably not build a factory here yet until it's, like, secure. Another thing I'd be trying to do is, if you can, build a base up here and start building your Krogoth, your Juggernauts, from the middle of the map, rather than all the way up here in the corner. It just saves a lot of time, and potentially a significant amount of resource as well. And yeah, this is why you pork instead of building the factory, because you could have had an extra pulsar or line of pit bulls or something, anything to deal with this onslaught of units. This is basically the earliest point that Fan could come through to support me, I will note. So he couldn't have got here earlier, really. And looking at that, it's kind of looking like he couldn't have, like, porked this and defended this, really, even if it tried. So maybe it would have been the best thing to do to, like, run the constructor out and start using it over here. But he's going to bring this Juggernaut down and try to help in this area. It's just going to be too slow. Probably should have held back here or something like that. At the most forward place, because that's approximately where the Juggernaut and these Cataphract are going to meet. Although it looks like he's going too far back from the choke point, so I would really sit in the choke point rather than going back from it. Other thing Fan should be doing, of course, is like managing his eco, using these nanos. It's like at this point I just start like building random blocks of nanos everywhere and anywhere to just have the build power. That's probably something I should have done, and that's something that I should have done. Yeah, so this is probably where I'd have held, and if he had like all the cans and the sumos and units that he had earlier, this would have been a great place to hold. Also, because it's so far back from the choke point, a lot of his units aren't firing, so he could really afford to line these Fiend up so that all his Fiend are firing at this stream of units. Like they're more in the center or something. But what's happening now is he's got like one or two, and it's basically the Juggernaut against the world here. Yeah, and this walking time from this Juggernaut down here is part of what's going on here. Yeah. Yeah, all these fusions just kind of becoming feed. But these ones don't die, which is really funny. I just keep those fusions for like forever. Well, Fan does. And yeah, this is a pretty decent lineup with his units here for Fan. But Fan is continuing to like try to push around this side of the map. It doesn't really make sense, especially with these lighter units. And especially with CaptainBlue in the way. Like, these units are just gonna run into pork or something at this point, because he's running into someone else's front line. So what he should be doing is he should be building up Banthas, a more solid on force of Banthas, Titans, I mean, and like progressively pushing forward his front or something. And of course getting the eco on the way, because if he doesn't get the eco on the way and doesn't continue to scale as he goes, then he's just gonna get out-competed by the players who do continue to scale. That said, Genjuro isn't continuing to scale, really. Although he's starting to put out more build power over here, but it's focused on unit production rather than economy. Star is continuing to eco, though. So, yeah. Fan's eco is now about half of Genjuro Star's, so he really needs to develop that as a priority, probably. At least the low-hanging fruit, which is like convert the other 30,000 energy and then get T2 maxes everywhere you can. So here we see he's doing the entire building out the banks of nanos. He's just not using them. And not reclaiming and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, and he's pushing at TNT and investing resources there, where TNT is like a common enemy of the people who are the current greatest threat, which are Genjuro and Star, because they've just taken out me, and I'm like the other good player in the match. So they're the real threat. Even if you didn't know who they were to begin with, you would know who they are by this point. And so yeah, by taking out the last comm, that like takes out the last bit of buffer. I mean, this buffer here was already mostly dead. But yeah, and then the onslaught just goes straight to Fan space. Although no, it looks like they're taking out everything but Fan, because they're coming out and taking out this in the corner. Yeah. And the game's really slowing down now. We're about 0.8 speed or something, and this is only gonna get slower. So, we'll just have to bear with it. Yeah, since what is Fan doing right now? Where's his attention? Okay, he's zooming out, which is okay. He's reclaiming over here, but he's not building the T2 maxes. Okay. It looks like he's taking a really long time to do anything compared to and he checked on the front line down there. That's okay. He's spending a lot of time checking on things and not really actually doing anything. I mean, I'm not seeing what he's selected, which is annoying. Is that... Do I have to select Smart Select for that? No, it's just broken for me. Alright. Okay, no, so he did Q ships from this ship factory. Seeing the air scouts up there. Alright. Those fusions are finally dying. Yeah, he's kind of... He looks really indecisive, like he's not really focusing on anything. And so I think I'm just going to go back and say what I say. It's like, get all your metal extractors. Okay, he's gone and got this part of the map, so good. Get the metal extractors, get the eco, that's your first priority. Get the free eco. And form a front. Form a solid front. And slowly push that forward, step by step. Hey, stay as you lay. Hi. Welcome to the stream. We're now at 0.29 speed. 0.28. This is only gonna get worse. So... Okay, now it's 0.43. That's alright. So... so when you've got this Tech 2 constructor out here building these, for example, firstly, it probably shouldn't be a single Tech 2 constructor doing it. Like send one T2 constructor to get those, and then another T2 constructor to go that way, and then another T2 constructor to do those ones. But also, have like just a T1 K-bot factory on standby, or a freaker, or something, and just send a guard command, like tell the factory to guard the T2 constructor, and just throw 10 freakers, 10 T1 constructors, just something, not too much that it'll get in the T2 constructor's way, but enough that you put a bunch of resources and build really fast, because you want to scale up as fast as possible. And of course the next thing to do is secure this. And yeah, so and of course it's like, as part of that, the other thing you want to do is you want to identify your choke points, like here, and you've got one here, you've got a naval choke point here as well. Or you could make the naval choke point there, but then the hovercraft can probably go up onto the land. That looks like pretty slopey. Let's see that. Yeah, the hovercraft can mostly get up onto the land there. So it's probably better to make the naval choke point down here or something, and then try to bring your land choke point down to about here as well. And so you want to kind of do it like that. For this kind of thing also, you want to make sure that your S screen is covering as much as you can. So by this point I've brought it out to there and made sure that that's dead, and push out I game for fun, rather than trying to push down around the map. Because you can kind of get an advantage by pushing at StarDoM and Genjuro, but that's going to be difficult. The other thing you should do is, like, with this attack down here, you should wait for the Krogoths. Because by... the Juggernauts, sorry. Because the Juggernaut's forte is to take out these units here. To take out static defenses and stuff. It's like short-range stuff. The Juggernauts actually have quite a range. But, so you've kind of wasted all those... you've wasted the Fiends for very little benefit. The other thing is, like... like, if you go right for the base, then you're just, like, going to be overwhelmed by, like, absolutely everything converging you and stopping you from going for the base. So it would be, like, because that's eventually where Fan goes. He goes down this way. You could systematically take out this area, this area, this area, because StarDoM is upgrading all the metal extractors across the map, and so you can kind of slowly hack away at their resource production by doing that. And that's probably the best way to approach it. It's like one piece of the puzzle at a time. And, like, the reason you'd get rid of iGame for Fun here is because iGame for Fun is not actively fighting against StarDoM and Genjuro and is actively providing military threat to you and preventing you from safely expanding into this area. So that's why I'd get rid of him. And I see that Fan did try to expand over here, but he just couldn't because of that, that pressure. And so if you've got someone who's harassing you like that, get rid of them immediately. If someone's hostile to you, it's like they're your enemy's ally, basically. That's the role they've chosen, and so you have to act on the role that other people are playing, because you can't just blindly hope in that 10 minutes that they'll stop harassing you. No, you need them to stop harassing you now. I mean, if the harassment isn't doing any damage, then sure. But, yeah. The other thing with these juggernauts going in alone, you can't bring in your reinforcements. You can't reclaim the wreckages when they die. You can't scout for them, all that sort of stuff. And so that's why I just wouldn't. There's 8 T2 maxes. That's like, it's not quite 10% of their eco, but it's a significant portion of their eco that you can take out just up here. And that's relatively cheap. Not only that, but you can, like, you can claim that eco for yourself, with a little bit of effort. Meanwhile, walking through the water is just going to get you dead. Where's the... Yeah, it's all in sim. I can't really speed this up at all. Yeah, and so we've got another T2 factory up here from Fan. It would be far better if he was investing in T2 constructors and just upgrading mexes, metal extractors or something, rather than pushing these tanks. Because these tanks aren't... Firstly, they're Tech 2 tanks rather than Tech 3 tanks. And so Tech 2 tanks aren't really going to go the extra distance. They're Tech 2 tanks rather than Tech 3 experimentals. So they're not really going to stand up in the fight against the experimentals. Moreover, the units he's building are these swarming units, which are just going to get in and around the Tsar. So you more want, if you were building tanks, you'd want to build the Tigers instead, which can deal with the lighter units because they've got a higher fire rate. And I believe they have more health for they have significantly more health for the cost as well, which is great against high damage per second units. The Tsar also doesn't have that high damage per second for the cost, at least compared to the Tigers, and you don't really need the extra range. So I'd go for the Tiger over the Tsar against this kind of a push. It probably would even be better against experimentals if you're going for the units. But again, rather than units, I'd probably opt for some T2 constructors that can go around, that can I don't know, build a couple doomsday machines either side of this, which would probably have been a better defensive force than the Tsar. That can grab all the metal extractors on this side of the map and really expand the eco like that. Fan's also split his juggernauts over here. I wouldn't do that. If he had all 3 of his juggernauts together, this one would be almost full health, because these units wouldn't have had a chance to fire at it. And he's again not going to make it to the base, but he'd at least make it further. The other thing was that Fan separate his cans from the juggernauts, so it probably would have been, this is a rough estimate, but I think it would have been better to walk the juggernauts around this way on that sort of a path, say something like that, or maybe down through there, but just with the with the summers, sorry, they're not summers, they're not cans, they're summers. Yeah, it's a summer. So that would have been better had he done that, rather than if he'd... Yeah, it would have been better if he'd done that rather than pushing straight in here, because we see these units just dying. And I mean, he doesn't have enough juggernauts to deal with this many juggernauts from Genjuro, which is, he's just overextended at this point. And now that he's actually converting all his energy income, he actually has quite comparable economy to Genjuro and Star. So he could really afford to be more conservative and just hold portions, like his portion of the map, expand, dominate it, and then move out from there, rather than throwing pieces of his army away across the map. That would have been a far better approach, because he's only 100-200 metal a second behind now, which is pretty good actually, for this sort of a situation. It's just, he's just thrown away his army. He self-deed that. It's a shame that this Juggernaut didn't make it close enough. Makes me wonder, because here's another thing, maybe if all 3 had gone over this way, maybe he would have been able to actually get close enough to destroy the eco. So, but I still think that overall it would have been a better option to just not go for the base at all and just work around the map. Yeah. Yeah, his Fan's putting out Titans as well now, and he's almost closed the eco gap, but not quite. Yeah, he could have another go at expanding too, if he just... Where's his attention going? Okay, all these individual battles. Because that's another thing, if you want to dominate the sea, subs are probably your best bet at T2, because if you go for other units, then they're probably just gonna spam subs of their own, or cruisers, because cruisers can shoot both above and below. Yeah. Okay. Let's just comment on this, say. So Fan's just brought all his fighters out, and he's sending them down this side of the map. The problem with that is, this is the line of... Okay. We have flak from star in this sort of area. So by sending down the side of the map, partially you're flying over the densest part of the flak down here, but you're also flying on a sort of route. Like, okay, let's also select these. So we've got 2 flak in here as well. So you're also flying on a route where that is the sum total of things you can bomb on the way. So if he flew, let's say, over this way, Fan could bomb across here and take out all of these nanos and destroy that. He could drop a few bombs there and take out 200 metal per second worth of eco and thus gain the eco lead. He could do both of them. If he came down this way, he could bomb over this and probably lose a bunch of bombers because he's flying over flak. So what he should do here is, as well as having this factory, which probably at this point in the game I'd have a T2 factory spamming bombers, not a T1 factory spamming bombers, but regardless, what he should probably have done is put out, at this point in the game, I would put out somewhere between 25 and literally 100 air scouts just to establish where all the anti-air on the map is. And so if he could have flown through any other route other than the one he chose, it would have been less flak. He's also got, he's still got like the screamers to deal with. Mercury, sorry. He's got the Mercury to deal with down here. But he could, in theory, come through this route, and this would be the best route because it would be not flying over direct flak fire. And if he could do that, there would be a chance he could get to the eco. But instead, he comes down over this route. And that's why you send air scouts out first. Fan does have like 40 sonar planes. If he sent 10 of them, or 20 of them, or not even all of them out, because you still want some sonar planes when you punch through. But first you want to send some of them, just to figure out where you can punch through. Then you send another group of scouts with your fighters. But here's the other thing. If you're getting fighters through, you'll have so many units, so many aircraft coming through that you won't even have to have scouts come through with your fighter screen when you have this many things. So I personally would send all my scouts first and then the bombers second. That said, I'm curious, where's this T2 air factory? I can't find it. Here it is. He could afford more nano construction turrets on this T2 air factory, by the way. Also, he actually does have the eco lead at the moment, it looks like, which is really impressive. I think that's because he took out some converters with his Juggernaut. But let's just look at this. We have 890 health for that, for 180, 860. Okay, if you want to do this, what you could actually do is literally spam dragons, Flying Fortress. That's probably... Okay, let's just look at this. That's 50 times that. What's 50 times 260? Okay. Okay. So if he wants to soak up flak fire, I think the sonar plane might be the heaviest the most health for the lowest cost. So health per cost, health per medal is what I'm looking at here. So I want 890 divided by, cause if he brought in a bunch of Flying Fortress, how many bombers does he have actually? So he's got 24,000 metal, so he could have 5 Flying Fortress, five dragons. 5 dragons would tear through all that flak really simply, and then he'd be able to, I don't know how it would stand up against screamers though. But if he had a bunch of Flying Fortress, that would probably have been able to punch through a lot better than his bombers did. Or what's the health on a Tech 1 bomber? Health on a Tech 1 bomber is 600. Health on a Tech 2 bomber is 1300. So you could, and it's only double the cost. So you probably want to build Tech 2 bombers for the extra health. That'll help you get over the flak. Or finally, yeah, you can build the dragons for the extra health. Hey, Belson. Yes, Flying Fortress can attack on the way better than the bombers can, so they would clear out the flak and allow you to bring in bombers later, for example. So let's play on. Game's almost over here. Ah, yes. Yeah, looking at resources, I think this is where a lot of the extra resource Fan has comes from. Also those converters, he finally used those. He's running out of nanos again though. You can never have too many nanos. Well, you can, you really can. So at this point, a Fan's accessing now about 400 metal a second, so he could very much afford more construction turrets on his Tech 3 lab, Tech 3 factory, because we see we've got 54. Okay, let's look at this. No, we could just double click. We have like something like 200 construction turrets working on juggernauts for Star and Genjuro with too many nanos. Yeah, arguably it's too many nanos. But for but Fan only has 30. That is far too few nanos. So I've seen, for example, this is something I'm gonna pick on Belson for a second. He has a habit of spending like 20,000 metal on nanos before he's built his first advanced fusion, and so he's metal stalling with 6 nanos on his advanced fusion, but he's got 2 advanced fusions worth of nanos across the map. So that is one case where you can have too many nanos, but in this case you're pretty much no, you can't. Because yeah, Fan's sending his juggernauts right across the map when he's outnumbered, and so he should probably, it would be more opportune to hold them back closer to his base, so that he can build up a bigger force and actually outnumber StarDoM and Genjuro once he engages. Because if he engages before he's outnumbering them, then he's just gonna lose that. But in order to outnumber them, not only does he have to hold back, he has to put more construction turrets into it. So something I tend to do, it's like I'll intentionally leave a space around my nano banks so that once I'm done building eco around the nanobank, I can just put a factory there, and all those nanos will still be used for a factory. And so I intentionally plan out my eco so that I can do that. You could say, skip maybe those 2 advanced fusions and then put a Tech 3 factory right there. And things like that. Now that you're done building all these, I mean, you can continue to pork along here, but you can also throw down a Tech 3 factory right there, and all those nanos are still useful. Sorry, there's that. There's very much still that. Okay. We've actually had StarDoM move his flak, so I just want to point out, oh no, that's extra flak. Because he's still got the flak units down here through the channel, but he's got more flak units up there. So because Fan hasn't scouted directly before he sent his bombers over, he's now going to fly over two sets of flak. Oh, because they're flagships from the other faction, that's why. So if he'd have scouted, he'd have seen that flying this route would have been the best route to fly in. That's probably the next best route, and that's the absolute worst route he could have taken to go in. Yeah, so that's another 2 of Fan's Juggernaut's dead, and there's another one walking to its death. And despite flying over a bunch of flak, Fan still has a lot of bombers left, but then half of them fly over the rest of the flak. And he's lost all his fighters to flying over the flak. And then he doesn't have enough left to brute force the Screamers at the end. And that'll be GG. Could have also bumped that. Oh yeah, I pointed that out. So Fence looks like he's lost the eco lead again. He must have lost some converters somewhere. Yeah, he lost the converters down here. There's nothing really more to comment on at this point. Fans kind of outnumbered. Am I going to play a new game? I don't think I've got time for a game after this, unfortunately. Plus, I probably need to take an extended break because I've been streaming for a while. Yeah, we've got the Banthas walking through the water, but there are subs all through the water, so they're probably not going to make it. Such cheesy tactics don't work against a prepared opponent, typically. Yeah. Okay, we've got more build power on the Tech 3 plant now, but it's probably too late. It's probably also worth having a standing aircraft army ready to deal with those rogue units like that, so that you don't have to send an entire Juggernaut after it. But yeah, this is just GG now. There's another bombing run going through, but it's just gonna fly over flak again. Because Star's put all his flak on that side, which means that at this point there's actually 0 flak flying through this route to the base. So the most direct route is actually the best one. But Fan doesn't have any fighters left, it looks like, so he wouldn't be able to take that direct route, I think. But if he did, and if he spread out his air scouts rather than, because flying through here, what's going to happen? The first air scout is going to discover the flak. The other 23 sonar planes are just going to die on the flak, so it's not worth it. In fact, they're only going to find one layer of flak in there. No, they'll see the second one. The second layer. But Fan sees the flak and he doesn't change course. Which is just GG. And he shouldn't be sending it without the... if he sends it without his fighters as well, it's just not gonna punch through the S screen. Alright. And yeah. The eco will go up in a second. And... I don't know, where's Fan's commander? Out here, okay. The commander will go up not too long later. Alright. I think I'm going to leave the replay here, because it is very clear that this game is over. Fan's commander eventually gets found by those submarines, and there's no way this is gonna hold. Captain probably should, once this blows up, that should be the immediate cue for him to send his Banthas in and try to kill this. Not that he has enough, it wouldn't be enough anyway. But he could try. It would be the best time for him to try. But yeah, this is very GG. Well played to Star and Genjuro. I will definitely win next time. I definitely won't have any more mistakes that I need to learn from. But this was a big and an amazing game, and yeah. Thanks everyone for watching the review. I am going to leave it here. And yeah, time for you to go play some games and go practice some games and get me some replays. Well, I'll see you in the next one. Bye. It all the way down the map. It like stopped right before my base.